All right. Well, I wanted to, last time we met, we started doing some diagramming in Second Timothy. I wanted to continue that for at least a few sessions to go through some of the passages so you can use that if you haven't yet finished that assignment. I think it's assignment 5.12, if I remember right, where I want you to diagram the whole book of Second Timothy. So I wanted to spend a few sessions going through a few verses from the book with you, just to help out with that assignment, but also to just keep practicing because that's something I really want to. I'm hoping that you guys get a good understanding of after finishing this course. I know we covered a lot of things together, looking at the different genres with poetry and narrative, and prophecy. Um, so I think we've covered a lot of things, but I think if you could really work at the skill of diagramming, that will be one of the more significant helps to you, especially preaching through the New Testament, the epistles. But even all of the all the sermons, the sermons in the Gospels, the instruction of Christ in the Gospels, the sermons in the prophets, even, um, and even the Psalms and poetry. Being able to diagram will really give you a clearer picture of how the author is structuring his argument within the passage. Now, of course, with narratives, diagramming is not as helpful, but even within narratives, right, there are instructive portions in narratives. Like I said, Jesus's instruction in the Gospels, that's going to be direct, didactic, just like the epistles. So you can diagram those things and be able to follow Jesus's line of thought and his outline and structure. And so I know it's probably the most difficult or one of the most difficult parts of what we've done together. I know the English and the grammar and all of that just makes it even more challenging. But I think if you can continue to practice, and that's why I want you to do a whole book, diagram a whole book, I think that will really help you. And then even too, I know some guys now are now trying to do diagramming in Tagalog. Um, uh, so for those of you that are comfortable in Tagalog, that's something to consider. Cebuano, I have heard it's a little more difficult, but you guys would know better. I don't know. Have any of you guys tried to diagram in Cebuano? I don't know. I've been told by the guys in Davao that it's pretty challenging to do. So they actually said it's much easier to diagram in English and then do their study, and then when they preach in Cebuano, that they just transfer the ideas, but they actually told me that it's been easier for them to diagram in English. So I don't know if that would be the case for you guys, but all the more reason, if that is true, that it's easier to diagram in English, then all the more reason to practice in English. Um, I think with English too, because it's very close to Greek in many ways as far as how the grammar works. That the English translations tend to be follow the Greek pretty well as far as the grammar and the structure, and um, so I think being able to do this in English will be really be close to what's actually in the original. So again, just to encourage you in that way. So what I like to do is just jump right in, go back to Second Timothy, and pick up where we left off last time we were together. Actually, before that, I want to do something else. I forgot. I did send out you guys the assignments that you have left to do, and again, please don't take that as a pressure or guilt. I just want to make sure you're aware of what still needs to get done. And now that we're about, March, April, we're a little less than 3 months away now from our last module together. I just want to be able to see you guys finish up so you can graduate and just celebrate that time together. So I know some of some of you have a little bit of work ahead of you to get there, but I think it's still very doable with about a little less than 3 months left to do that. But one of the things, as I think I mentioned in the last session, Taya is now, we're trying to move more towards a structured, formal academic approach, because we want to get accredited at some point and then be able to offer higher degrees in the near future. And so we've started now doing enrollment for each of the modules, like a semester, like you would do for a regular class where you would enroll at the beginning of the semester. And so I had sent you guys some instructions on the Facebook message. But what I wanted to do is, just before we jumped into the lesson today, I wanted to go through that form with you, because everybody who is planning to take Module 6 needs to fill it out. So I wanted to go through that with you just real quickly. And so also too, so be a recording, so the guys that aren't able to join us this morning, they can watch it later. So if you could allow me just a few minutes to go through that form with you, and I'll make a few comments. So let me pull up the form. I sent you, let's see, where is it? I sent you this document on Facebook Messenger. So hopefully you all can see that. I had the link for enrolling in Module 6 is here. So we're going to pick up that link. And then I had a few instructions here just for some of the places I thought might not be clear as you go through the form. But let's just take a quick look at the form together. And then if you have any questions, please stop me and I'll explain it. So if you click on this link here, you will pull up this form. Okay. This is the enrollment form, and this is how Taya is going to do it from now on. So for you guys, you only have to worry about it for this semester, because unless you take some other classes later with Taya. But here you just want to fill in, follow the instructions. Most of it I think is pretty straightforward, so it should be easy to follow. Your email, and then select one of the following. You're enrolling in a new class, so just to select this one. Looks like they have a little typo here. And then just fill in, as it asks, your name, your Facebook name. And then here's one part, make sure you need to upload a picture of yourself. They want to have that on file because again, they're trying to formalize the database better with the students and make this a more, I think, make it a more structured academic approach. And so they want to have your pictures. So just add don't put your mugshot from when you were arrested, okay? Don't put that picture here. Put just kidding. Just put whatever. You take a selfie and upload it, whatever. It doesn't have to be high quality picture. Just upload a picture, and you can add it here, of course. Drag it into there. Your church, phone number, address. This again, some of those personal details. Classroom format, I just put both in person or online. That's what we do, actually. We have our class both online and in person. Okay. And then just the third page, just keep following. Now here on this page, there's really only one question being answered, is which program are you in? And this, of course, would be the expository preaching, diploma for expository preaching. All right. So you fill that one out. And then on this page, it's just going to ask you which course you'd like to enroll in. So for here, you're going to pick Preaching 6 with me. All right. So just select that one. So that's just the course that you're enrolling in. All right. Now, it mentions here about the tuition. We'll talk about that in a minute. You don't have to do anything for that on this page. That'll come up in a future page. The main thing on this page is just selecting the correct course. The next page, which I think is the fourth page, talks about the tuition. Now, there's two ways to approach this. One is you can submit your tuition directly to this account. That would be perfectly fine to do. And then you'll get a receipt and then you'll upload it in a little bit. Or what we've been doing is collecting the tuition in the first, during the module. And so that's perfectly fine to continue that as well. All right. So if you want to pay ahead of time directly, that's great. You can do that. Follow these instructions. Now it says before the start of class, but like I said, we can just continue for this time to just you can pay that tuition at the beginning of the module. All right. So that's one thing. The second thing is just recently, I think within the last year, we've been able to secure subscription to Logos, so that if you want to use Logos, you can actually do a subscription for about 2,500 pesos for the year, and you'll have access to, I think it's like their full database. It's like $25,000 US worth of resources that you would have access to, along with the program itself. So if you're interested in that, then I think the next page talks about how to do that. Oh, here it is. This one. If you want to do that, under this section, Logos Bible Software, there's a click here. You guys see that? Okay. If you're interested in finding out about that, there's details here you can read through. All right. Talks about what's available, how to sign up, and then you'd have to make this payment to do that. You couldn't wait until the module. You would have to go ahead and pay directly to subscribe. Then you would have access to, like I said, a library that's valued at over $25,000. I mean, there's a lot, there's over 1,000 resources. I think it's, here it is, 2,700 resources. So that'd be Bible dictionaries, word study books, commentaries, historical books, Bible encyclopedias, all kinds of stuff. So this is actually a really good opportunity that you can, as a student, subscribe to this. And I think as a graduate, you may still be able to continue subscribing to it. I'll have to check on that, but I believe if you're a TEA student or you've graduated, you have a TEA certificate, that you'd be able to continue. So you can read through this document. Again, it is right here on this section of the enrollment form. There's a link you can click if you're interested. If you want to do that, then just note that here. Yes, subscribe me, and then go ahead and make the payment, and you'll upload the receipt on another page. If you don't want to do that, you can just put no, the free version. There is a version of Logos you can do for free, but it's very limited in what it has. But that's available. I think it mentions it here on the link. Let me see. I think it's somewhere on the link. It mentions that. So Logos does have a free version that you can upload that has some tools with it, but this version, it has a full number of commentaries, devotionals, and resources. You have to pay 2,500 pesos a year to subscribe. Okay, so just note that. If you want to do that, hit yes. If you don't, then just say no. Okay, that makes sense. I know I haven't talked about that much because this is a more recent opportunity that came about that we were able to, TMAI was able to secure a deal with Logos, or Faith Life is the company. They were able to secure a deal to get subscriptions for a very good price. So this is really, normally this software is like over $1,000 US to buy it if you wanted to buy the app for your computers.
Would that be for a year, Pastor Tim?
Yeah.
So 5 yearly.
Yes.
All right.
It's
so we can.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so can we do that at this moment? Can we subscribe already?
Yeah, you can do that right now. If
Thank you,
you
thank you.
go to the instructions and you make the payment, and then you should be able to do that. I haven't done that. I mean, I already have it on my computer, but I think those instructions are pretty. If you follow them, it should be okay. If you have any problems with that, you can contact Sean Ransom and just if you have any specific questions. But basically is if you follow that, make the payment, then I think they'll give you a way to access the software to do that. But it's a really good deal if you're able to make that happen for 2,500 pesos for the year. I don't know if there's a difference, like if you graduate, if there's something else you have to do. I'm not sure about that yet, but at least you can start on it and then you can see. So that's something to consider. That's on this online form, so you could note that if you want to do that, okay? And then you want to upload your receipts. So if you end up doing that, if you subscribe, if you hit yes, I want to subscribe, you go to the document and you follow the instructions about doing a payment either by GCash or transferring it into the bank account. Then you'll get a receipt, and then all you need to do is upload that receipt. Let's see, where is it? I think you can upload it here. Yeah, so you'd upload the receipt here. Okay. And if you choose to pay for your tuition, the 2,500, which is also 2,500 pesos, as it's noted here, for preaching 2 to 6, 2,500. If you choose to pay that now, that's perfectly fine. It's actually better if you can. Then you would also upload that receipt here. If you wait until the module to do this, then you'll need to upload the receipt at that time. Okay. So that's all this is. The upload your receipts here just means for either your tuition or the Logos or both, depending on what you've paid for. All right. And then here is if you do choose to do the Logos subscription, just put in the 2,500. If you're not doing it, then just put 0. Okay. And then when you made the payments. All right. Does that make sense so far? Any questions? And that's basically it. Once you've done all that, then you just hit submit and you're enrolled. Okay. I think there was there one part? I think there was another section. I didn't see it. Was on the doctrinal statement. Just reading that, and let me try this again because I think I want to show you that real quick if we have it. Okay, it's basic program you're interested in. The fees, the course you're enrolling, tuition, talked about that, the receipts, date of payment. Okay. I thought there was a page before that asked for you to read the doctrinal statement, indicate if you agree or if you do have a different view, just to note that. But for whatever reason, I don't see that here. So don't worry about that, I guess. Okay, so that's the enrollment form that everybody who's planning on taking Module 6 needs to do. All right. And again, I sent you that document by Facebook Messenger that has the link on it. All right. To that online form. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
About
Master
a
Tim?
blue goose to check
Pastor Tim, I have a
Yeah,
question.
Charlie?
Can you still avail that that offer even after our graduation?
For the Logos?
Yes.
Yeah, let me check on that. I think it is still, you can still do it, but I have to confirm whether or not, if you have to be a current student or not. So let me just I'll send an email about that and I'll let you know, okay?
Hey, Pastor Tim. Thank you. Another question, Pastor Tim.
Yeah.
Is they offering on purely online class to students who are like from far away places?
Yeah, there is an online one. It already started though. I think they're in module 2 right now. I don't know if a new one is starting yet, but we do have a at least one online course going now. Through you mean through the preaching program?
Yes, yes, Pastor Tim.
Yeah.
Like the one we are having right now.
Yeah. So we are doing one now. I don't know when the next one will start, but that's we are offering that now as a ongoing thing. Do you know somebody that's interested or?
Yes, Pastor Tim. I know someone who wants to join the program, but it's
Okay.
not available. The the kind that we're doing right now.
Okay. Because I also am going to be starting a third batch in Cebu. I'm just almost ready to send you guys the announcement for that and the details. So I don't know if that's something where it'd be like what we've been doing, where they're in person and we meet for a week every 6 months. So I don't know if this person could do that or not, but
Pastor Tim, on when would that start the next batch in Cebu?
later this year, probably, I'm not sure yet, sometime October or November, maybe even early December. I'm not sure yet, but the plan is later this year to start it.
And until when is the deadline for enrollment for that?
I'm gonna hopefully next week, I'm gonna send out the announcement and it'll have the details on that. So probably would like to see applications turned in by probably by April or May, if possible. But yeah, we wouldn't start it till late October or maybe even after that a little bit this year.
Thank you.
So yeah, I know a number of you mentioned you knew of others who would want to be interested in that. So I'm going to send you guys that announcement and then you can forward it to whoever you would like to invite to consider. So program that can be, anybody, anybody that you think would you've taken the class, so you know what it requires. So anybody you think could do it would be welcome to apply.
Last question, Pastor Tim.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
On the payment for the tuition fee and is that separate account, tuition fee and the Logos?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, there'll be 2 separate payments.
All right, thank you.
But you can look on the form and see
About
if the accounts are different.
a question, Pastor, about of Logos. If there's a tutorial in the Logos on how to use it.
Yes. Yeah, they've got several videos you can access online that can walk you through some of the details, how to use it. It's I've been using Logos for, oh boy, I want to say 20 years. So I've found it to be very helpful. It tends to be very expensive for Bible software. So that's why I think this is a really good deal if to do it this way. Because basically if you tried to buy the software, I mean, you could do this subscription for 20 years before it would, you know, if you bought the software, you know, right now, like instead, if you just made a subscription, it'd be the equivalent of subscribing for 20 years, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So it's a pretty good deal if you can do it. But let me ask about graduates. Make sure that once you finish the course, you'd still be able to do it. I think there's a limited number of subscriptions, like how many we can do right now. So there may be some limitations there, but I'll check and see. Okay, any other questions? Either about the online enrollment, about the next batch, about your homework assignment message I sent you, anything class related before we get started on the lesson this morning? Okay, then let's get going. I know you are really, you don't want to ask any more questions because you're so excited about doing some more diagramming. So I know that's why.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, see, I know that. I know you guys. You love the diagram. So let's do a little more together. And again, if any questions that you have, feel free to, by the way, I have graded almost all the assignments that have been turned in as well. So just to let you know. Okay, you guys remember this. We're in the fourth step. This is steps for studying an epistle. And the fourth and probably the most important step when it comes to preparing a message from an epistle is the diagramming, the block diagram or the structural diagram, or some call it phrasing. There's different terminology, but I like to call it a block diagram because it sort of blocks out the passage as you go through it. And as we can remember, again, just the procedure here, and I made a little change, I think, on the first step, hopefully to make it a little clearer, is what I suggest that you do is the first step, just identify the first independent clause that you see. All right. Sometimes it's hard to go through a whole paragraph and figure out what are the independent clauses. It's hard to do that at the beginning sometimes. So what I just did was modify this a little bit to say, you know what, just look for the first independent clause. Find the first one. It's usually near the beginning. And you're just going to want to find the first. Remember, a clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, right? And then if you remember, independent means that it can stand alone. It's a complete thought, okay? A dependent clause, if you remember, it cannot stand alone, and actually it modifies another word in the sentence. And usually, right, you see a dependent clause begins with a word that tells us it's dependent. So, right, for example, if we had the pastor preached the word, okay, is that dependent or independent? Does this stand alone?
Stand alone.
It stands
Stands
alone.
alone, right? This is independent. Okay, it's making a complete thought. But if we had said after the pastor preached the word, this is dependent. Okay, it's depending on something else in the sentence because of this word after. Right? After the pastor preached the word. So if I had said this, so we need more, right? From we need more information. So for example, if I said, after the pastor preached the word, the congregation was blessed. Okay, where's my independent clause in this sentence? What stands alone here?
The congregation was blessed.
Yes, very good. That's my independent clause. That stands by itself. After the pastor preached the word is dependent. That is, it tells us when the congregation was blessed, right? After the pastor preached the word. We could do this, right? When the pastor preached the word, he became tired. All right, same thing here. That word when tells us that this clause, again, it's a clause, pastor, subject, preached, verb. But that word when tells us it's got to be linked to something else. All right. So oftentimes you can tell a dependent clause because it begins with, remember, dependent clauses often begin with a conjunction, right? A subordinating conjunction. So that, therefore, for, because, when, okay? They often begin with a subordinating conjunction or a relative pronoun. Who, which, that, okay? So here, what we want to do in this first step, we're identifying the first independent clause that you see in the paragraph. Now, if you see other ones, that's great, but mainly just find the first one, and then we'll go from there. And once you do that, the second step then is to identify the remaining phrases and clauses, right? In the paragraph or in the passage that you're studying. And we do that, of course, with our good friends, the connector words, right? These are our best friends now, right? We love the connector words, especially if you've done the assignment of identifying the connector words for 2 Timothy. Okay.
Pastor Tim,
Yeah.
I have a question. How do we identify the word for if it is conjunction or preposition?
Ah, very good question. Because notice it's in both lists, isn't it?
Yes.
So how do we know if it's acting like a conjunction or a preposition? Can anybody answer that? Anyone have any thoughts or ideas? There's basically one thing that distinguishes it. There's one thing to look for to be able to answer that question. And that is what follows the word for. If a clause follows, then for is a subordinating conjunction. But if a noun follows, then for is a preposition. Okay? So, for example, the man fell asleep for he was tired. Okay? This is acting like what here? How's the word for functioning?
Preposition.
Well, what follows it?
Noun.
He was tired.
Subject. Independent.
Yeah, for he
Pronoun,
was
pronoun,
okay. He was
pronoun.
Subordinating conjunction.
yeah, he was tired. Is that a phrase or a clause?
Clause.
It's a clause, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
So that means for here is acting like a conjunction because it's followed by a clause.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if I had said this, the man fell asleep for 3 hours. How's it functioning here?
Preposition.
Is this a phrase or a clause? 3 hours.
Phrase.
It's a phrase. So for is acting like a preposition here.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor Tim.
Okay. So all you need to do is look, okay, what are the words that follow it? Is it a phrase or a clause?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. And that's the way you can figure it out.
Because in my connecting words system, I'm just shading a color. So my word for, because I do not know, he had a two colors, preposition and conjunction.
Yes.
Because I do not know what the identifier to become a conjunction or preposition. Now I know.
Yeah.
You
So like,
can put the colors
yeah.
So cool.
just to be sure.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're going to see that in when we diagram today, we're going to see the word for there, and we need to think about how is it functioning. Okay. Now, yeah, that's good. And by the way, you will see it function both ways in scripture. And that's because actually that's how it works in the Greek text, the Greek language. The Greek word for can function both ways, just like in English. So, or sometimes they may translate a conjunction in Greek as for instead of because. Right? Because that's really what this word is here, right? The for here is because, right? It's the reason he was tired, right?
Reason.
Sorry, the reason he fell asleep. So if we diagrammed it, we put it under here, right? And we put why. Why did he fall asleep? Because he was tired. So for in this case is telling us a reason. Okay, great question. So yeah, looking for these connector words again is a key to identifying the phrases and clauses. Now I've noticed those of you that have done the assignment, the connector word assignment, I want to remind you with participles, make sure you recognize whether or not the word is a participle. For example, just because the word ends with ing doesn't mean it's a participle. It can be, but you have to look for some other clues. So for example, let's say the preaching was encouraged, was a blessed, I'll just put long. Okay. So here we have the ing, right? A verb with ing. So it looks like a participle, but is it a participle? Well, notice it has an article in front of it, doesn't it? You see that? What does that tell us?
No.
That preaching is a noun here. Okay. Only nouns have articles. And again, remember, an article is article can be, it's just the, a, or and. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. And the is called a definite article because
Yes.
it's a specific thing. The apple. It's not just any apple. It's pointing to a particular apple. Whereas
The gospel. The gospel.
yeah, the gospel, right? Whereas a is called indefinite. Okay, a gospel, that can mean any kind, right? But the gospel is a specific kind, right? Or an's just the same as a. It's also indefinite as well. And it's only used, it's like used for when a word starts with a vowel. You say an apple. It's just a funky English thing. But a and an are indefinite. So it can be, an apple. That can be any apple. A gospel, any gospel. But when you say the apple, the gospel, the preaching, you're referring to a specific one, okay? But all of those only come before a noun, okay? Never a verb. So the preaching was long. This is not a participle because the preaching is a noun here. And remember, we call that a gerund. Okay. Now, what if I had said he was preaching a long time? Okay. What do we do with that one?
Verb.
Yeah, I heard verb. Why do you say that?
Yeah. Verb.
Sure.
Verb to be. Verb is being.
Yes. I guess it's
Being.
not. This is a verb because, yes, notice in front of it is a verb of being and also a subject. Okay. So if you see a verb of being, he was preaching, or let's say he is preaching a long time. This is a way in English to say it's happening right now and it's ongoing. Okay. So it's a way to emphasize a particular action is happening in an ongoing basis. Okay. So here it's a verb. Now, if we had this, the pastor stood at the pulpit preaching the word. How about this one? Is preaching here a participle?
Yeah.
What do you
Participle.
Yeah, right?
Participle.
I don't see an article. I don't see a subject or verb of being. So this looks like a participle here.
The main verb.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Because the pastor stood at the pulpit. That's my, right? The pastor stood. That's my clause here. And then at the pulpit is a phrase. It's telling us where he stood. But preaching, so preaching the word, there's no subject and there's no verb of being in front of it. There's no article. Now, if I had said this, the pastor stood at the pulpit and he was preaching the word. Okay, now notice I changed it, didn't I?
To dependent.
See, now
Verb.
it's a regular verb. It has a
Yes.
subject he and it has
Verb.
a verb of being. And notice I
Being.
connected it with the conjunction here, didn't I? So
Yes.
that means this is grammatically, it has to be grammatically equal to what it's connected to. So the pastor stood as an independent clause. He was preaching the word is an independent clause. So preaching here has to be a verb. Was preaching actually is the full verb. Okay.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. If the word looks like a participle, if it's acting like a noun, it's not a participle. Or if it's acting like a regular verb, and we see that by noticing a subject and a verb of being, then it's not a participle. Okay? Questions on that? So I just noticed some of you seem to be still a little confused by that. I know it's difficult. And if we were doing Greek, the Greek actually has a very specific way that it forms the word. So you would know from the Greek immediately if it's a noun or a verb or a participle. But in English, we don't have that. So you're sort of stuck with having to look for other clues, unfortunately. So in Greek, just the way that the the verb is formed and the endings of that verb, it tells you right away, oh, this is a participle. But in English, that's not the case, sadly. So English will present this participle in another way by showing that it doesn't have a verb of being, doesn't have a subject in front of it, doesn't have an article in front of it. Okay, we can see that, for example, let me just take you, is it Ephesians 2, I think, if I remember right, it's a good place to look. See an example here. Okay, Ephesians 2. Is it 2? No, sorry, Ephesians 3. 4, something. 4. Or yeah, here we go. Okay, so he himself gave some as apostles, some as prophets, some as evangelists, some as pastors and teachers for the equipping. Okay, is that word equipping here? Is that a participle?
Participle.
Now.
It's a noun. How do we know that?
For the.
Article.
Yeah.
The
See the
article.
article there? Okay, good. Now notice, for the equipping of the saints for the work of service to the building up. What about that one?
Noun.
Yeah.
No, still.
See the article?
The.
Okay. Now, if I keep going down here, that is Christ, from whom the whole body being joined together, joined and held together. What about this one? Is that a noun?
It is verb.
Verb.
Being.
Well, is there a
It's participle.
yeah? Is there a subject?
No.
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 So this is actually a participle. There's no verb of being. I mean, actually, being is a verb of being, but there's no. It says the whole body being joined. Okay, that's a
No verb.
participle.
No subject.
Yes, no subject. And again, notice for the building up. So again, we have a noun. Okay.
The
So
Christine Pacific, speaking the truth in love.
yeah. Okay, good. But speaking the truth in love. Okay, what about that word speaking?
Participle. No.
It's a participle.
Okay.
Okay,
No,
because the main clause is we are to grow up. All right. Speaking the truth in love. There's no article, there's no subject, there's no verb of being in front of it. So speaking here is a participle. I had hoped in class to, and I think I gave you some notes on this, but, and maybe I might cover this a little later, is talk about participles in Greek, if you guys are interested. They're actually, it's very common in Greek, very common. You'll see them a lot, actually. So sometimes the English translation doesn't show it as clearly, but they're there a lot. Now, okay, what about this one? According to. Accord is a verb normally, that's got an ing ending. Is this a participle?
Yes.
Think about it. This is one of those tricky English phrases. It actually is a preposition. Don't you love English? Isn't it wonderful? According to is one of those funky, unique prepositions that it goes together. According to, it's comes from a Greek preposition apo, or apo, and it just means how something is done. So in English, according to is a preposition. It looks like a participle, but actually, if it's followed by to, then it's a preposition. And I bring that up because one, it's kind of tricky. It looks like a participle, but two, according to is a very common, is pretty common in the English translation. It's not as common as those nine ones that I have you memorize, right? It's not as common as a whiff boot. Okay, so that's why it's not on the list, but it's not far behind in the English Bible. Okay, so another preposition to be aware of is according to. Okay, there's a few prepositions and conjunctions like that, which are not a single word, but actually are more than one word. Okay, another example would be for this reason.
Yes,
You'll see
repeated
that.
in 2 Timothy.
Yeah, that's actually a conjunction, those three words together. Okay. It can carry the idea of, therefore,
Therefore,
or
so
since,
then,
right? So, but for whatever reason in English, sometimes for this reason is used. So keep those in mind. Okay. So according to is going to normally be a preposition, and it usually is indicating how something is done. Questions on that?
Actually, Pastor Tim, I saw these things when I work on my connector words. As I consult the Greek, there are actually connectors that are not listed in our in the handbooks.
Yes, and that's something that you should be doing as a final check. So like we can do that for this. What was that passage we just looked at? Ephesians 4, what was it? 4:16. So let's take a look on not Facebook, but Bible Hub. And we'll look up Ephesians chapter 4. We'll hit the interlin there. That's weird. And let's click for the chapter. If we go to verse 16. Okay. So from whom all the body, and notice here, see this being joined together? Okay, we can look here directly and see, is it a participle? I don't know if you guys can see this on your screen. Can you see that? It says present participle. And then it gives the voice, middle or passive. So that tells you, okay, that is a participle. And then we go down and being held together. Is this a participle? Well, we can confirm that. Notice present participle.
It's not shown in my screen.
You can't see it?
Yes, Pastor Tim.
It's too I can't expand it. Well, maybe I can. Let's see.
I cannot see it also, Pastor Tim.
Okay, let me make sure I'm
What
sharing
I
this
have in my
screen.
screen is the LSB.
Can you
from
see it now?
Logos. Yeah.
That
Okay.
one, Pastor Tim.
All right, I had the wrong screen up. Okay, so what I showed you before was from whom the whole body being joined together. And then notice it says here, present participle. You guys see that?
Yes. Yes.
Then being
Perfect
held
to
together. Let's look again, participle.
Yes.
Okay, and then it tells you that there's a preposition here by every ligament. Now that word according to, where did it go? Oh, I don't have the whole thing. Okay. So over here, if you keep reading, being held together by every ligament of its supply, and then notice here's that English preposition according to. In this case, it's
Yes.
from the Greek preposition kata. Notice it's preposition. See that?
Ito dali ron Greek kini mga pangalan.
Yeah.
Mm.
It comes from the Greek word kata. Also, another Greek word apo can be translated as from or according to sometimes. Okay, so here you can see it'll tell you this preposition for that particular word. So, and then if we go down here, notice the building up. You see that down here at the bottom?
Yes.
Notice here, it does not say participle.
Now. Yes. Sir.
Notice it says noun. Now in English, we can see that because the English translation used the article the. And they do that here.
Certain,
Yeah.
certain. That word accusative and that middle voice, is it a big deal in understanding the meaning of the word?
I didn't hear the first part of your question. What'd you say?
The accusative and the middle voice, is it a big deal in understanding the meaning of the word?
The use of the middle voice?
Accus- yeah, the
Ah,
use
yeah,
of
ah,
the
yeah.
middle voice
Gana-
and the accusative in the noun.
Oh, I
Was
see.
it a noun? Yeah.
So Pastor
Is
Tim,
it a big deal?
second person,
Yeah,
third person. It,
Yeah, accusative, feminine. Yeah, I understand the feminine, but the word accusative, and also I saw a while ago the middle voice in the verb.
Yeah,
Is it crucial, Pastor Tim?
that was up here, I think.
Yeah,
Present
middle,
participle, middle or passive.
is it a big
normative,
deal
neuter.
in understanding the meaning?
Yeah, we talked about, remember when we talked about verbs, we mentioned right, verbs have three descriptions, three characteristics, right? The first is the tense,
Tense.
right? Past,
Um,
present, future in English. Greek has, I think, 7 tenses. Then there's the mood,
Mode,
which is indicative,
Indicate,
indicative,
imperative,
imperative,
infinitive, subjunctive,
subjunctive,
octative.
and interrogative. Okay.
Yes,
So,
interrogative.
okay. Now, infinitive's not a mood. That's a special kind of verbal. That's another category, like a
Okay.
participle. An infinitive's not a mood. An infinitive may have a mood. Sorry, an infinitive doesn't have a mood. Sorry, but it does have a tense. You can have a present tense infinitive or a past tense in Greek. But as far as the regular verbs, they have a tense, they have a mood, and then they have a voice.
voice, active and
Voice.
passive.
Yes, active or passive,
Middle.
right? And
Middle.
then in Greek, there's a third voice called middle. So an active voice means the subject is doing the action.
Action.
I hit the ball. Okay. Active. Subject I'm doing the action. I hit the ball. Pickleball, right? But if it's passive, then the action's being done to the subject. So the ball was hit. Okay. The subject in the sentence is ball and it was hit. So the action's happening to the subject. Now, middle voice, it would be the subject's doing the action to himself or for his own benefit. So yes,
Okay.
that can have an impact on how you interpret the verb, because it's not just the subject doing the action, it actually reveals a motive in the action. or direction of the action. Okay?
Thank you, Pastor Tim.
So in English, sometimes that middle voice idea is represented by the pronoun like himself or herself. Like if you had it, he hit himself. Okay, that's active, but he's doing the action to himself. So that's sort of a middle idea. But in Greek, the verb would be in a middle voice form. Now, the problem is in Greek, the middle voice can often look like a passive voice in the Greek form of the word. That's
Yes.
why, if you noticed on the thing here, where is it? Here, notice it says, can you see this? Verb, present, middle, participle, middle, and then notice it says, or passive.
Pero,
That's because the construction of this Greek word actually can be middle or passive. So you have to use the context to determine which one it is. Now here, it is passive. Because looking at the context, it's something else is holding it together. Okay? The subject, the body here, is the topic, from whom the body being joined and being held together. So it's something happening to the body. The body's not doing this action. It's happening to the body. Okay? That means that's why it's you would say this is passive voice. Okay? But there are many cases where the middle voice, clearly you can see that the verb is that the subject's doing the action for his benefit or doing the action to himself. And it'll be in the
Pastor
middle.
Tim,
Yeah.
is there a passive voice? Is there a passive and then in the middle voice? Passive verb.
No, because the voice is either going to be active, passive, or middle. It can't be two at one time.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor Tim. I'm just a little bit confused. This is new to me totally.
Maybe
so much.
Pastor Tim, his meant is imperative passive.
Yes, you can have a passive imperative. Okay, because an imperative is the mood, passive would be the voice. And I think we went over an example in class. Remember the Ephesians 5:18, do not be drunk with wine, but be filled by the Spirit.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
And that be filled is imperative. Here, let's just look it up. I'll show you on the actual Greek.
Yeah.
Okay. Chapter
5.
Gotta go up here. Chapter 5, verse 18-ish. Where is it? Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let me expand it a little bit. Okay. So, and do not be drunk with wine, which is debauchery. Instead, be filled. There it is. Right? It's from plerao, the verb to fill. And notice, let's look. Present imperative. Now, again, it says here middle or passive because the form of this verb middle and passive are the same form. So you have to use the context here. So again, it's passive because notice he says you be filled with or by the Spirit. So we know the Spirit's doing the action. All right. The subject is you, right? Because this is a command. You be filled. All right. It's a command, right? It's imperative. And it's passive in the voice, meaning the action, the subject's not doing the action. The action's being done to the subject. Okay. And we know here that the subject is clearly the Spirit, right? Because he uses that phrase right behind it, with, or that can be translated by the Spirit. Okay.
That is
So-
why Pastor Tim, second person.
Pardon me?
The second person.
Yeah. Now, this is a second person plural. All right.
Yeah, okay.
And we can understand that by how these Greek letters here are particular that show us the form of this verb, that it's not only as an imperative, but it's second person plural, meaning you all. Paul's speaking to all the recipients of the letter, the Ephesian church. You all be filled. Now, if he had said it in the singular, then it would be a specific person that he's addressing. Okay, but here he said it's plural. Second person is you, right? First person is I, me, my, our, we. Third person is he, she, they, their.
Yeah.
Second person is you, singular or plural. Right, here's a verb here, is. Notice this verb is third person singular. He is, or she is, or it is. Okay, and then notice here, it's a regular verb and it's present tense. So we see the three characteristics of this verb here. Present tense, indicative, active. Okay.
Yes.
All right, great question. Any other questions about this or something related?
About the infinitive. A lot of things that
About the imperative? What about it?
infinitive Pastor Tim.
Oh, infinitive. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very common in the
Yes,
just like
infinitives are interesting.
John
Right,
3:3, John 3:7, Pastor Tim. John
What-
3 and verse 7, you must be born again, and it's reading in English, it leaves at the impression that it is a command to be done by the subject, but this is
this verse here? Talking about this verse?
yeah, you must be born again. The last
Okay, so
last part.
what's your question or comment?
It's in English, it seems to be a command. You must be born again, but looking at Greek, it's indicative.
Okay, let's take a look. All right,
It's a verb.
verse 7.
Passive.
Okay,
Passive.
I see. Yeah, it is necessary. Okay, that's the day. It must be is the idea. This word day carries the idea of it has to be this way. It must be this way. It is necessary. Like several times in Luke, Jesus said, I must. He uses this word quite a bit, where he says, I must go to the Gentiles. I must preach the kingdom, he said in Luke 4. And then, yeah, to be born is an infinitive. Now in Greek, infinitives can be used in certain ways. In this case, it's functioning. How would I word this? The translation "you must be born again" is a reasonable translation. I think it represents, because infinitives in Greek can be kind of funny. They can actually function like a regular verb sometimes, whereas they don't do that in English. And this is why I want to be careful with, as you dig into the Greek text and look at the interlinear, there's still a lot of Greek grammar that you need to understand so you don't misinterpret something. So when you see an infinitive in Greek, it can function like a regular verb sometimes, depending on what's around it. And I don't think I can explain it any better without getting into some technical details that I don't think would be helpful. So I think in that case, Jesse, what you can do is look at the other English translations and just see what they do. If they all translate it the same way, then you can be confident that that's an accurate representation of the word. But if you see some that have, you know, to be born again or something like that, and others that don't, then that tells you there's not clarity there by the translators. But if all the translators translate it the same way, then you have to say, well, okay, there must be some way that the Greek language works that they all agree, so it must be correct. So let's do that. Let's just look and see what the different translations are for that verse. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see this. I got
Yes, we can see that.
several translations here, all right? 6 or 7 of them. So the New American Standard has, you must be born again. The ESV has, you must be born again. The NIV has, you must be born again. The Net Bible, you must be born from above. Okay, that from above is a little different, but it still has, you must be born. New King James, you must be born again. American Standard, you must be born anew. The Christian Standard Bible, you must be born again. Okay, so do you see a pattern here? Everybody has, you must be born, either again or anew or from above. So it's not in an imperative form. Otherwise, it would say be born again. Okay, but it's giving the idea of you must be born again. Has this idea of if it has the force of a command, but he's not giving a direct command. Okay, he uses that verb, it is necessary, or this is what must happen. But he didn't give it in a command of be born again. He said you must be born again, but it's you know, it's similar in force, but technically it's not an imperative. Does that answer your question, Jesse, or just make it more confusing?
It's okay, Pastor. I'm thinking on.
Yeah, if I think a helpful,
Other.
sorry, let me just say this and you can ask. I think a helpful thing to remember is just look at the different translations. And if you see a consistency there, then you may not understand why it's translated that way, but at least if you can look at 5 translations and they all say the same thing, that means that you've got probably at least 15 or 20 Greek scholars that have looked at that verse and they all agree that it should be the same. So if that's the case, then they're probably right. Okay. So just, you know, you may not know, okay, well, I don't know why they translated it that way because it says infinitive here, but maybe there's something in the Greek language that that they know that I don't, a special case that would allow for this to be the correct translation. So if you come across something like that, you know, just look to see how the other translations do it. And if they all agree, then you can be confident that's probably an accurate translation.
Thank you, Pastor Tim.
Okay. So infinitives in English, they can function like a noun. They can function as a subject or an object. They can function as a verb at times. They're very versatile. So they usually don't function as a connector word though. Normally they are completing a verbal idea. I love to eat. Okay, to eat is a infinitive, and it just completes the verbal idea. I love to eat. That's completing the verbal idea in that case. I think I put in your notes in the syllabus, I gave you a section on infinitives. I believe if you look in the syllabus, Jesse, toward the end, I don't think we covered it in class, but I did just provide it for you, if I remember right. So you can read through that and see if that helps. So as far as connector words, I just had you identify them in the assignment because so you didn't get confused because the infinitive starts with the preposition to, right? And it's followed by a verb. So, you know, to know, to eat, to have, to do, to be, those are all infinitives. And I didn't want you to think that they were connector words. All right, so I wanted you to at least be able to see what's an infinitive, but it's going to behave differently than the preposition to. If you have to plus a noun, that's a preposition. If you have to and then a verb, that's an infinitive. That's how you can tell the difference. So if for example, if I said something like, I went to the store. Okay, what follows? So we see to here, but what follows it?
No.
That's a noun. Okay,
Yeah.
so here, this is preposition. But if I say I want to eat. Okay, here we have to again, but what's it followed by this time?
Verb.
Eat is a verb. So this is an infinitive.
Mm. Mm.
Okay. And in this case, it completes the verbal idea. It's not just I want, it's I want what? I want to eat. Okay.
Great.
So I wanted you to be able to see that, distinguish that, because this is a prepositional phrase. Okay, whereas this is an infinitive, not a prepositional phrase. It's behaving differently. All right. Any other questions, or I guess we'll have to wait till next week to do the diagram, but that's okay. I want to make sure to
Very
answer your
helpful.
questions. In fact, we can see it if we look at just look at the passage. We'll diagram this next week, but 2 Timothy 1:3-5. Notice here he says, longing to see you. There we have an infinitive. Notice it's a to followed by the verb see. But then up here, I am grateful to God. That's not an infinitive. That's a right. It's a preposition followed by a noun. Okay. So in this case, sorry. Go ahead.
God here is the direct object.
Yeah, God is the object of the preposition. And that's how we describe it. We have the preposition plus the object of the preposition. Okay, that is prepositional phrase. Okay, and the object of the preposition is always going to be a noun if it's a prepositional phrase. If we have the preposition plus the verb, okay, well, now that's an infinitive. And it's always, the preposition is always going to be to in that case. There are infinitives in Hebrew, by the way, as well. And they too have some different grammatical features. than Greek or English. Okay, and infinitive is one of the, remember I told you there's a category called verbals. Okay, where a verbal has a verb in the word, but is not functioning like
Verb.
a regular verb. Okay, so for example, one verbal is participles. Okay, that is a verb plus an ing or ed ending. Or there is an infinitive, which is to plus a verb. And then finally, there's the gerund, which is a noun that has an ing, or it's a, sorry, let me do it this way. A verb plus ing or ed that is functioning like a noun. Those are called verbals. All right, you guys getting enough nosebleed?
We're asking for it.
Si pangutana Jis, samot labad tong uwan na.
Sa Babel. We want to
Well,
learn well.
like I've said, you know, I know it's a big challenge. At the same time, the better you master English, there's so many great tools in English right now. I mean, hopefully eventually we'll get good tools in Cebuano and Tagalog. But right now, at this time in history, there's a lot of great resources that are in English. So if you can have a better command of the English language, you'll be able to use those resources more effectively. And like I said, if you're not going to study Greek at this point, English is, probably one of the better languages, translating languages of the Greek text. So that's another benefit, I guess, to understanding these things.
Pastor Tim,
And-
is it possible that Tia would offer Greek classes in the future?
Yes. Yeah, I think we're working on that. We're working toward getting a master's program actually put together that you can get a master's degree. We're probably a few years away from that, but we were just talking about it at our staff meeting this week, starting to put together classes, and we got to figure out how to get accredited and all that. But Greek and Hebrew would definitely be part of what is offered in that program. I think we're going to start with a Master of Ministry program and then Master Divinity. So Master Divinity would include the languages. So
Pastor Tim, is this our diploma current program can be accredited?
yeah,
Accredited.
yeah, we're not accredited yet, but when we do, then this program would apply. I don't remember how many units, 6 or 8 units or something that could be applied towards the master's program. So that's another reason, to try to graduate, because if you do in the future want to get more training through TEA, you already have several units done just by completing this. Because this is not just a regular certificate program. You guys know you put a lot of work into this. This is a class. This is a master's level class, really. So we're hoping, at some point in the near future to provide a degree that's accredited, and then this class would be directly applied towards that. If you wanted. So that's why we're getting grades. That's why we're keeping track of grades. That's why we're requiring you to complete the assignments, so that the certificate actually will have some, unit equivalence when we can get an accredited program.
Yeah, Pastor Tim, in some program in other seminary, Artea can be accredited for hermeneutics equivalent for one module, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think this is pretty rigorous. I mean, at least this preaching class, what I had in seminary, there's a lot of stuff we cover that, you know, I didn't cover and I didn't get in seminary. And then some discussions like today, I mean, this is, you know, more advanced grammar that is not just in any certificate program. So not saying that boastfully at all, but just that's, I think, a reality that, you know, if you guys put in the work, you know, the most important thing, and you guys know this, but my attitude has always been, I don't really care about the degree. It's the training that the degree helps me get. So I know degrees are important for people, you know, they want to know you've gone through the training, but for me, it's the training itself. That's all that matters. So a degree at the end of it is not what my goal is. At least when I've done a lot of education, right? I just finished the doctor of ministry program about 5 years ago. And I did that not because I wanted that degree. I did it because, you know, Steve Lawson was offering this program and it was really helpful to me. And it will allow me to teach a doctor of ministry level class in TEA too. So there's that side too. But so that's why I appreciate you guys. I mean, you're taking this class and right now it's not accredited, but you're still putting in a lot of work. And I really respect that and appreciate that from you guys. And that tells me you want the training because you want to be more effective pastors. And I think that's very honoring to the Lord. So I really admire you guys for that because I know this is not easy. But well, somehow the time is it's already noon. So hopefully this was helpful to you, and I'm always happy to answer any questions that you have, even specific ones about your passage. If you want to ask those questions, you're welcome to do that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
Sorry
now
for so many questions. Okay, Pastor Tim.
now go find your Kleenex box for your nosebleed and prepare for next week.
Yes.
All right, Joshua, could you close us in prayer?